これは試練だ。
We all know what happened. Diavolo, seeking for his identity not to be known by anyone, went through a crusade to achieve this. But at the same time, he wanted to possess power nobody else had, a balance that should be impossible. First, he started a criminal organization known and feared throughout Italy. Then, he went on to eliminate anyone who remotely knew about his identity. However, there was a problem, for Diavolo had a secret daughter, one who knew his face, and thus Diavolo had to do everything in his power to eliminate this threat to his dream. Yet, on his journey, he would discover the Requiem arrow, a device that would truly allow him to escape the eyes of fate and truly become unknown. But fate itself seemed to conspire against him, for although the arrow was within his reach, it slipped through his grasp again and again, as though rejecting his unworthy hands. In the end, he failed to claim it, and his ambitions were cut short, especially when Giorno Giovanna seized the arrow and awakened Gold Experience Requiem. However, what if this didn't happen? What if Diavolo managed to get his hands on the arrow and evolve King Crimson to new heights? To imagine what could have been, we must first understand how Diavolo's King Crimson works in its original form. Its main ability was to erase time itself, cutting away a stretch of reality, anywhere from a few seconds to half a minute, and leaving only results of the events while the process was erased. If someone tries to shoot him, the bullet would still arrive at its destination, but the moment of it being fired and traveling through the air will be wiped away, giving Diavolo absolute advantage since only he remained aware of the skip time. Alongside this was Epitaph, King Crimson's sub-ability, which allowed him to see up to 10 seconds into the future, glimpsing inevitable outcomes before they occur. Together, these powers made Diavolo almost untouchable, for not only did he foresee what was about to happen, but he could delete the very fabric of time in order to avoid it. And yet, even with such overwhelming power, Diavolo's reign ended when Giorno Giovanna's will and Requiem arrow reshaped Gold Experience into Gold Experience Requiem. The arrow manifested new abilities to reflect the user's innermost desire, and Giorno's was to prevent evil from ever achieving victory. Thus, the Requiem arrow's true power was not raw strength, but absolute rejection. It had the ability to undo fate itself. Any actions against Giorno, no matter how certain, was undone and rendered meaningless. Diavolo experienced this firsthand in the most nightmarish way possible. Each time he died, whether struck down by an accident, attack, or chance, his consciousness was forced to live through the event in an endless cycle, only for it to reset and begin again. His suffering had no end and no escape, a death loop designed to strip him of his victory, his freedom, and even his sense of existence. But again, what if history went a little differently? What if Diavolo had managed to bend the arrow to his will? If Gold Experience Requiem could undo destiny, then King Crimson Requiem would surely evolve to fulfill Diavolo's ultimate obsession, the complete erasure of self from the eyes of the world. If normal King Crimson could erase time while Diavolo remained aware, then Requiem version might erase not only time, but recognition itself, removing memory, identity, and causality from all who oppose him. Here are a few abilities King Crimson Requiem could have. King Crimson's time erasure is already powerful, but it only gives Diavolo control over the present. He can dodge attacks, avoid danger, and manipulate situations within those erased seconds, but he cannot alter the underlying course of events. A Requiem evolution, however, could transform that limitation into something far more terrifying: the ability to rewrite fate itself. Instead of merely cutting away outcomes, King Crimson Requiem would allow Diavolo to impose entirely new results onto reality, reshaping cause and effect to suit his will. Imagine someone firing a bullet at him. With his original power, he could erase the instant the bullet was shot and step out of harm's way. But with Requiem, he could twist the bullet's destiny so it ricochets off a stray piece of metal and fatally strikes the shooter instead. This power will make him a living hand to destiny, not simply dodging death, but assigning it to others, rewriting the script of reality until every outcome bends to his design. King Crimson's normal ability lets Diavolo race a stretch of time, say 10 seconds, so that no one experiences what happened during it. Imagine someone swings a sword at him. The moment of the swing vanishes, and suddenly the sword is already behind him. Having missed, the swing still happened, but nobody remembers it. If this evolved into King Crimson Requiem, that principle could be taken much further. Instead of erasing just moments, it could erase a person, an event, or even a memory completely, making it as though it never existed in the first place. This would fit perfectly within Diavolo's obsession remaining unknown and unreachable. If someone discovered his face or his identity, he could delete that awareness from their mind or from history itself. Imagine a rival gangster finally discovers his secret, proudly announcing it to his men, only to suddenly vanish mid-sentence, along with every trace that he ever lived. Even his allies will look confused, as if he had never been born. In fact, they'd be confused who each other even are, as since the boss didn't exist, then events couldn't have taken place for his organization to be created. One of Diavolo's deepest fears is being recognized. His whole story revolves around eliminating anyone who knows his face, even his own daughter. King Crimson already allows him to hide in a way, erasing time so only he knows what occurred. But King Crimson Requiem could take that to the extreme degree. Instead of hiding events, it could erase people's ability to perceive him at all. This means anyone who sees him, hears him, or learns his identity would instantly forget or lose awareness of it. Imagine Diavolo walking into a crowded street. People's eyes slide over him, unable to process his presence. An enemy stand user could corner him in an alley, shout his name, and aim their weapon, but suddenly they wouldn't remember why they were even there. They'd blink, confused, with no recollection of their mission. In the original story, Diavolo's defeat comes from being trapped in an endless cycle of meaningless deaths. King Crimson Requiem could give him the ability to inflict a mirrored version of this punishment. However, instead of skipping short bursts of time, Requiem might drag opponents into the erased time that his ability takes place in, isolating them in fragments of reality that no longer exist. Victims will be conscious but trapped, drifting in empty stretches of skipped time where nothing can happen and no one can reach them. For example, imagine enemy stand user sending their stand towards Diavolo's heart. At the last moment, he activates Requiem, and the attacker finds themselves standing in the void, the motion of their strike frozen in place. Outside the real timeline, they would never land the blow, never age, just remain stuck in eternal limbo,